Well, welcome to Britain's Hidden History, the not so on time live show. And let me start by giving an update as to Alan's condition by reading the family statement which Angie placed on the Facebook group page recently. Dear friends and loved ones, we wanted to share some good news about Alan's condition. He's still in the hospital, but we're happy to report that he's making excellent progress. Despite the challenges he's facing, his determination shines through. Alan still requires physio assistance and can feel a bit confused at times. However, with the incredible support and care he's receiving, we are confident he'll overcome these obstacles and regain his strength. We want to express our deepest gratitude to each other, to each and every one of you, for your unwavering love, prayers, and positive thoughts for Alan. Your kindness has been a tremendous source of comfort and inspiration for our entire family during this difficult time. Please continue to keep Alan in your thoughts and prayers as he continues his journey towards recovery. We believe that with your continued support and the unwavering resilience within him, brighter days are just around the corner. Thank you once again for your unwavering support. With heartfelt appreciation, Alan's family. And just a few hours ago, Adrian put a latest update out when he and Tony visited Alan in the hospital and said he's really making very good progress. I'm sure we can all join with the family and wish Alan all the best for a speedy recovery. So today we have Arnie playing violin, and we have two new videos from BHH supporters Rob Pierce, John Pitcher and Rob Shaw, who have started making a 4-part series of travelogue videos to support their work on their new illustrated book on the War King, which follows Arthur II's life and battles. Over to you, Arnie, to kick us off. Thank you, Arnie, and keep your videos coming. I think we're due for another one soon. Now, in the comments from the YouTube channel during the past 2 weeks, we had a number of supportive comments thanking individual contributors for their work, which was found to be very interesting. Thank you for your messages of support. Simon Mitchell said in response to Rob Shaw's presentation, interesting that Christopher Wren is an important symbol for the Druids and Celts in general. And Celt in Welsh means covert. Sorry, that's not Christopher Wren, that is just Wren the bird, coinciding with the name Christopher Wren. I don't think we have anyone responding to comments, but keep them coming, as individual BHH supporters will reply, and this may lead to interesting debate. So now we'll watch the first of the road trip videos following through Wales to Longborth and Camlan battle sites.
Croeso and hello! This next series of videos will feature footage of the journey of writer Rob Shaw, John Pitcher and myself, taken on a fact-finding mission to North Wales as part of research for the graphic novel idea first broached by Ross around 2 years ago. Rob Shaw has made great progress already on the first draft of this massive story of the real King Arthur, and has wanted to visit the locations that would be featured in the story, to get a real feel and flavour of the era that would be depicted. We initially intended to use the photographic and video images as part of research and information gathering, and so we have had to collate and edit the footage into a coherent video. Armed with the ever-faithful and resourceful John Pitcher, we hope to show an array of sites on the way up, to take in some of Wales's great historical gems, and some that even to this day simply have not had the required level of research, thus dismissing and discarding as myths and legends the true history of Britain.
We began our road trip by joining the M4 motorway up at Talbot and then travelled west along, passing by Swansea and continuing on into Carmarthenshire. Just before you approach the junction 48 whilst travelling west along the M4, it's worth taking a look in the field alongside the motorway, as you'll be able to see the remains of Castell D, also known as a Llandilo Talabont Mott, I think. It's a large mound that rises at the roadside and stands close to the Lecha River and a multi-arched railway viaduct. As you descend the hill towards junction 48, you'll pass below like a little bridge that goes over the road, and the castle will be on your left just beyond that point. So keep your eyes peeled for that if you're ever passing by this way. Passing Castell D in the motorway terminus at Pont Abraham, we cut up over the hill and took a little detour to take a few moments of the castle called Drysline in the spectacular Towy Valley. The peaceful ruins of Drysline Castle rise from the wide floodplain of the Towy River below. A famous siege took place at this castle during the 13th century. Rhys ap Maredydd, the grandson of the famous Lord Rhys, was leading an uprising against the English king Edward I, after previously being allied to the English king against the northern prince Llywelyn ap Gruffydd. By 1287, Rhys had won back some of his ancestral land by taking the castles of Dynevor, Carrick-Cenin and Llandyfri, and also led a force against the castle of Newcastle Emlyn. Drysline was the seat of power during this period, so the English, under the command of the Earl of Cornwall, besieged the fortress. However, due to the strength of the fortification, the besiegers needed to dig a tunnel under one of the towers to hopefully bring the wall down to gain access to the fort. However, this plan went catastrophically wrong, as the tunnel collapsed early, killing all of the tunnellers, including Lord Stafford, who was still in the tunnel at the moment of collapse. These unfortunate men were never recovered from the site or remain buried beneath the hill even today. The English force eventually took the castle, but it was not the end for Rhys. His campaign continued until 1290, where he gathered a force in Ireland and returned to meet the king in battle. Rhys's force was no match for the Edward's army, and Rhys was taken prisoner and taken to York, where he was executed. His former fortress was last recorded during the Owain Glyndŵr rebellion, where it was stated as being captured, and then it quietly fades from history. Now, after our quick visit to Drysline, we headed off along the A40 towards Carmarthen. But just before entering the town at a place called Abergwili, you'll notice a strong connection with the famous Merlin. There's the ancient hill fort called Bryn Myrddin, has got a commanding position over the valley, and down below in the valley stands the Carreg Myrddin. Below the fort of Bryn Myrddin is the Bishop's Palace that now contains the Carmarthen Museum. There are many large ancient trees in the grounds, and just outside the main entrance to the actual museum there's an ancient stone that was relocated there from Nearland Isle, and it's got a stone cross carved into the front that's still clearly visible. Moving along just down the road from Abergwili, you'll enter the ancient town of Carmarthen. Not having much time to spare, we chose to visit just the amphitheatre. It's just like quite easy to miss if you're ever passing by, because it's surrounded on all sides by the shops and houses. It's lucky to have survived the modern encroachment. You can see where they've dug into the hill and then used the removed material to build up an embankment on the southern side to construct the form of the arena. Enough remains of the site to enable you to still visualise how it might have once looked. From the amphitheatre, looking along the Towy Valley in the distance, peeking over the houses, you'll be able to see the looming fort of Bryn Myrddin. The Towy River is a string of defensive sites of varying ages all the way along this route, beginning in the estuary with Llansteffan Castle and Green Castle, then moving along to the town of Carmarthen, where you have the former site of the Reedy Gors at Johnston, and then in the town itself you have the Carmarthen Castle and the site of the fort either side of the road running down to the town's bridge. North of the town is Bryn Myrddin, and a small motte called Pen and Nap near Llanegward. And then moving along upstream you'll pass with the three large sites called Drysline, Grongar and Denevur. Denevur having the picturesque ruins on the hill and the fort in the grounds below. In the higher reaches of the river, you got the sites of Castell Meirig, with this Meirig presumably being the Meirig of Dyfed, but who knows. And then finally, in the northern reaches of the river, you'll have Llanddyfri Castle and its fort near one of the adjacent churches. Now, heading off from Carmarthen, we headed up the road in the direction of Newcastle Emlyn. And travelling along this road, we noticed that one of the villages we passed by was called Cynoel Elfed. There's a person called Cynoel who's said to have been one of the survivors of the Battle of Camlan. Whether this village has any relation to that Cynoel, I don't know, but it just reminded us of that character from the story. Another roadside site we passed on the trip was a place called Tom and Esba. It's recorded as being a motte, and you can see it from the car. And there's like a little junction opposite where you could just pull in if you ever wanted to jump out and just get a quick photo or anything. Our main target on the journey on the way up to meet Rob Shaw in North Wales was the site of Llongborth. So we continued onwards towards the coast. In the Llongborth battle theory, there's a site called Bedd Geraint, mentioned as the burial site of Prince Geraint, who said to have died of the battle. So we couldn't miss the chance to get a quick glimpse of the farm and the landscape whilst on the way to the beach.
Using the work of Wilson and Blackett and the drive and energy of Ross Broadstock, we will show that the great elusive battle sites of Arthur are indeed very real and are supported by overwhelming written and physical evidence. A famous battle of King Arthur that not surprisingly cannot be found, apparently, the vicious civil war battle in the surf of Longbourth, is remembered in the locality where Prince Geraint was killed in action, marked by a grave 3 miles inland.
Now the coast road takes us north in the direction of Aberystwyth. But before we reach the town of Aberystwyth, there's a lovely place to pull in and take in a spectacle view, and it's near Aberarth. It's a place where you could just pull up in the car, so it doesn't matter if you suffer from mobility issues or anything like that. Now we run out of time for any more stop-offs on the way up, or we'd be late to meet Rob. So after making our way through the seaside town of Aberystwyth, our last port of call is a little valley called Cwm It's a short distance north of Dolgellau. It's within an area there's many links with the Battle of Camlan, and it's northwest of the larger main Camlan Valley. And hopefully we'll have a look at the bigger valley on the journey home. So we did park up for a very brief look at this other side Camlan Valley, and before we headed off north to meet Rob at the Great Orme and Llandudno, and then the real exploring to begin.
Well, thank you very much, gentlemen, and that's a great start you've made to the road trip series you've created, and is highly appreciated by us, your viewers. When any of our supporters are out and about, take some video footage so that we can all see what the various sites look like at the present time. It's easy to get them to me via WeTransfer, for example. Just message me on the BHH Facebook group page and find me under members, and I'll give you my email address. Here's an example of what I mean, one of my own visits across to Nevin with Margaret, and Nevin and area in West Wales. Windfarm, Neolithic burial site, monument underneath a much bigger monument, place for holding the corpse of a famous person maybe, or maybe the place for holding the spirits of famous and other people. That's an estimated 5,000 years old. And even then, they had Star Wars destroyers. It's only resting on 3, because that main one is not touching. It's touching there. Wow, big stone. So that stone and this stone here, found when they were renovating the church and graveyard, and they decided to bring them in and preserve them as window sills. And this one here, it's got very old Ogham script carved into the side. Ogham writing reads from right to left. If your name is, for instance, Mark, write it down from right to left, i.e. cram in Welsh. And use the table above like this. Cram. Very good. And this is a wooden cross, complete with straps and nails. And complete with a thorny crown. It's wooden, it's a cross, and it's at Nevern. And it's in fact it's in the church at Nevern. And a very pretty church it is too, with lovely ceilings. This is the Vitalania stone with Ogham script carved on the side. And there we have Howell stone. Colours come out of that right now. compared with earlier.
It's because you touched it.
Yeah, I did, yeah. That's a very tall stone there to hold that. And there's the cliff face. The cross is quite overgrown by here now, because it's in there.
Oh, I remember.
The cross is in, but there you can hardly see it, can you? As you can see, that's cliff face. And that is walled up cave. And that's what they're calling the Pilgrim's Cross right by there. And that's the little bit of flat stone that you stand on to touch the Pilgrim's Cross. I thought it was much bigger last time we were here. There we are. And down here must be where, in this area, the American guy took out a bit of rock. The Pilgrim's Cross is a scheduled monument protected by law because of Alan Wilson and Baron Blackett, who got it scheduled. But they're not scheduling. The cross on the outside, they're really scheduling the cross on the inside. Well, there's some fascinating stonework still available to be seen around us. My walking club walked the back lane near me from Upper Church Village to Tree Forest recently, and we saw the most amazing dry stone wall alongside the single track road. It reminded me of the dry stone wall at the Pilgrim's Cross over in Nevin, and it seemed almost identical. The village we're at is Llantwit which merges into Church Village. The Welsh for Llantwit is Llanilltyd, which is the smaller holy place of Saint Illtyd. the larger one being Llanychtid Fawr, Llanwyd Major. St. Ichtyd was a cousin of Arthur II, I think, and set up a number of places of religion. I wonder if the dry stone walling on the back lane has anything to do with the religious settlement, Llanychtid Fawrdref. If so, it may date back to the 6th century. Or is it just a skill of creating the stone walls being timeless? Who knows? And I think I need to do something about my fitness, don't I? There's only a slight incline to get up to that pathway that leads to the Pilgrim's Cross. But a couple of 100 metres of climbing uphill has sorted me out all right. So now we arrive at the time to play the second of the new road trip videos, slightly longer than the first, made by Legolas, John and Rob. And this one takes us to the Great Orme copper mine at Llandudno in North Wales.
In this second episode, we'll be taking a look at the fascinating Great Orme, a great rocky outcrop that projects northward off the north coast of Wales. Dominating the seaside town of Llandudno, the Great Orme has attracted tourists for decades, if not well over a century. Known originally as Gogarth, this rocky outcrop on the North Wales coast boasts many ancient secrets, one being the Iron Age fortress of Penddinas, a defensive enclosure of old rocky ramparts that house people of great importance. Another major secret is the recently discovered gargantuan copper mines that saw vast quantities of this essential bronze ingredient hewn from the rock with pebbles, antlers and crude tools. The ongoing excavation of these ancient tunnels show the vastness of the mines and how tough life must have been for the miners way back then, working by candlelight hundreds of metres down, deep in the heart of the Great Orme. To think this place was exhausted and abandoned centuries before Rome should conjure up a much different image of ancient British life and achievements, and connection to Europe, the Med and Near East. Hopefully moving forward we can re-evaluate this idea of British barbarism and wandering Celtic tribesmen who just happened to possess an island of immense mineral wealth, traded with the known world, and possessed some of the finest metalworking skills in Europe. Yet somehow they are said to have lived in mud huts, painting themselves blue.
I joined Rob and John in Llandudno on the Trail of Arthur. You could say this trip really had its origins in September 2020 when I went to visit Ross and Ange, and we, together with Rob, had a look around Rhys Saeson, which remains to me one of the most inspirational places I've ever seen. Whilst we were there, we discussed the historical King Arthur of Glamorgan and Gwent, Arthur at Moyrig at Tudrig, who was clearly a walking, not a Disney prince in any sense, a Dark Ages warrior king who did some terrible things. Discussing it further, we kind of made the parallel between King Arthur and Batman, King Arthur being like a Dark Ages Batman, a very privileged man with a very, very powerful and effective education that led him to be able to do things that certainly not many men can do. Gogarth really represents an opportunity for weaving landscape into the story, bringing the amazing history of the area into our story. And as I say, landscape's going to play a big part in the story, and this is an opportunity to literally weave the landscape into Arthur's mind, his education. Arthur was educated by Merlin, who was intent on making him a war-king, whether Arthur liked it or not. So the Great Orme itself is an enormous outcrop that now is a little bit like Swiss cheese, you could say. There have been small caves and exploratory digs all over the place, and at its most extensive, the biggest mine is that so far they've uncovered over 9 kilometres of tunnel. I say so far because there's more to be uncovered, but the Great Orme itself was probably at its height in terms of mining activity between 1700 and 1400 BC. You could say the height of the Bronze Age. The Bronze Age had been around, people had been making bronze for 1,000 years by then, you could say, just about. And this became the biggest copper mine, or this was the biggest copper mine for a long time, 300 years during the Bronze Age. This was obviously built, or these tunnels were dug rather after Stonehenge was built, and it's recently been established that the Stonehenge calendar is exactly the same as the Egyptian calendar of 360 days plus 5 or 6 for intercalculation. Stonehenge therefore pre-exists the Great Orme, and that had some kind of cultural connection to the Middle East, and we'll talk a bit more about that. Bronze, obviously, in the Bronze Age was very important, like you could say oil has been for the last century, and if that's the case, if bronze was like oil, then Gogarth was like Saudi Arabia. It was an enormous cache of this incredibly valuable and important material. Experts have estimated that 1,760 tons of copper were dug out of the Orme. That's metric tons, so that's 1.76 million kilograms of copper. That's an awful lot of copper. Some say it's enough for 10 million axe heads. Given that copper ore is about 0.8% copper to ore, so you have to dig out 100 kilos to get of ore to get, that'd be 800 grams of copper. To get 1,760 tons of copper out meant that roughly 220,000 tons of ore has been dug out of the Great Orme. Now, if you divide 220,000 tons by the by 300, for the 300 years the mine was at its peak, you get 73 tons a year need to be extracted, which works out about 200 kilograms a day. So obviously sometimes there'd probably be more taken out of the ground, sometimes less, but you're looking at an average of 200 kilograms a day, which is quite a lot when you consider the tools being used. Now, there are loads of unknowns with the Great Orme. Was it a local discovery, and was it owned, if you like, by the native, the original people in North Wales at that time? Quite often resource discovery leads to the area where the resources are found becoming kind of impoverished, or at least more unequal. For example, in West Africa, oil discovery there has meant that some people have got very, very rich, but the local people have actually suffered quite a lot, and there does seem to be reason to suppose that this huge deposit of copper may have benefited some people more than others. The Mould Cape being an example of possibly some people in the area being fantastically rich, whilst others were probably working as slaves in unbelievable conditions. Be that as it may, for about 200 years no other copper mines in Britain and very, very few other copper mines in Europe were being worked because the Great Orme was so important. It produced so much copper, it drove everyone else out of business, you could say. It was certainly a big operation. We know for a fact that Cornish tin was traded with the Near East. There was a discovery of tin dated to about 1300 BC that definitely came from Cornwall, being found off the coast of Israel. So I think it would be harder to explain why the Great Orme mine wasn't connected to international and probably Middle Eastern trade than if it was. There's probably more explaining to do to say that this huge mine produced all this copper and there wasn't any very serious interest in the trade of this stuff because it was the oil of the day. It was the difference between winning and losing in war, and serious people would have been seriously interested. So I'd say it was pretty clear that this was an international operation, probably using local labour as slaves, or certainly very, very poorly looked after. The one body that's been found that dates to the area on the Great Orme was that of an 18-year-old, or someone not older than 18, who was around in about 1700 BC. Their spine was malformed, had been misformed by the hardship, the work that they'd had to do underground, and it seems very likely that most of the people who work underground were children and not there voluntarily. So the malachite, which is the ore that you find the copper in, runs in horizontal veins about 3 feet wide and about 8 feet tall. They run in parallel at a distance of about 3 feet. So there were lots of parallel tunnels in the Great Orme, with some interconnections at right angles. This particular complex has 9 levels going down all the way to sea level, and it was only possible to dig deeper than that thousands of years later when people started using mechanical pumps to get the water out. So the Bronze Age miners went as far as they possibly could within the Orme before the mining operation stopped.
I'm surprised there's all kinds of... You'd think if you could see it, you'd want to take it, wouldn't you? I don't know. While you're down here.
Yeah, but perhaps the original bits were huge chunks of it, do you mean? And this is just like a film kind of thing, so...
Yeah, like the sort of crumbs.
Yeah.
Really. That's brutal. I mean, imagine doing it with things like that.
Yeah. Steps here, right? Cool.
So, I mean, for them to have bothered to have mined this, it's got to be a proper sea all the way down, right?
Yeah.
So it's quite, well, I say quite interesting, but it's not very wide, is it? I mean, it must have been,
Yeah.
I mean, there's no malachite there, no malachite there, so this must have been like, I guess we'd probably call it a sea or whatever.
Yeah.
Is that a long way? No. Maybe. No, I wouldn't want to fall down there, that's for sure.
As well as there being these horizontal shafts, there are some very sizable vertical shafts that go up and down maybe 50 metres or so. These were quite impressive to look at, and we wondered about the use of them, but certainly the Orme itself is riddled with kilometres of caverns and tunnels, most of which I think it's true to say have yet to be re-uncovered.
It's quite quartzy there, isn't it?
Yeah, so I was just thinking.
Oh, another one up of us, look.
Oh well.
See up there?
Oh, it's another. I think it's another.
Yeah.
Horizontal.
Yeah, definitely.
So you could be walking along there, and if you don't know where you're going, come straight down the hole.
Yeah. If your torch went out or you lost your light or something.
No. Oh. It's strangely sort of human shaped as well, isn't it? I mean, it's just where the copper was. You can sort of imagine getting lost in here.
Oh, well, it's just having our light.
Imagine 76-year-old down
Yeah.
here. You really got a long coffin. They'd be in jail these days. This is it, yeah, I mean, there's bits, but I think you're probably right that all the green stuff's gone, do you know what I mean? Or the, you know,
Yeah.
You just left with traces of it, is it?
yeah, you've got to figure they've taken all the sweet spot out.
Yeah.
This is like the, you know,
Yeah.
the jam the donut hole there.
I know what you mean, bud.
There's nothing really good behind. Oh, they haven't gone to all this trouble. Well, there's greens and blue, that's a really strong, wow, is that black or is that blue?
I see what you mean, yeah. It's all colours, isn't it?
But it's like, alright, we've, you know, that's far enough, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know if can these even be original? Someone's hacked at that, haven't they? See these? You know, you just go, alright, that's enough.
Yeah.
You wonder what this bit was like. Was it like proper green?
Probably. Early days. You see
Just
that?
to be worth the effort of coming down here, it's got to be quite
Yeah.
a lot of return on your.
Look at the conditions they work in.
Yeah. Can you imagine the smoke if you're down here?
Oh, yeah.
With, I mean, what would you see? What would you breathe?
The mind's a warrior.
You see the right above us? It's like there's a shark over there. Up again. Yeah, right away. Yeah, look there. So you could be walking along quite happily, and all of a sudden there'd be a shark underneath.
Yeah.
Oh, that looks deep. Oh, no, don't shine the light. Hang on, let me get over it first. Now you can show me. Oh, no, that's not.
Flip back, it's not.
That's pretty deep, isn't it?
Yeah.
Saying 25 metres.
Yeah, looks
25 metres below.
That's a long way to fall.
flip back.
Oh, look at that. So they just Paul Sod would get all the bits they chopped off and have to store them somewhere, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
Someone's got a signal down here, did you hear that? Got a text message.
I know, I'm going to have to
Yeah,
get a new phone, I think.
yeah, I'm on that phone.
So, Dinas Emrys is a central location in the story we want to tell about Arthur growing up, being educated by Merlin. There's no historical evidence whatsoever for Arthur at Gogarth, but it offers us storytelling opportunity. As sort of mentioned, we're thinking about Arthur as a kind of a Dark Ages Batman, Well, that's a reasonable summation of how we're thinking about it. So this is partly his origin story, his upbringing under Merlin, and the trials and tribulations of becoming a walking. In our take on this, Merlin is definitely suffering with PTSD, someone who's seen an awful lot and has suffered an awful lot. He's not a comic figure, Merlin, in our story at all. He's a very serious figure. So you could say Merlin is Arthur's Ra's al Ghul, the guy that trained Batman, if you like. If you want to swap franchises for a second, you could say Gogarth is going to be like Arthur's Dagobah, where he learns a lot of lessons from his teacher, and not everything we learn in life is suitable for a Disney film, and some of the things that happen to Arthur in Gogarth are going to be suitably dark. So as part of his education, Merlin is going to use Gogarth to create a Theseus and Minotaur style situation. Arthur will spend nights down in Gogarth trying to survive and find his way out. More generally, we're going to set the labyrinth up as being like Arthur's metaphor, whatever, for Arthur's brain, and the Minotaur, the creatures that are moving through the labyrinth, are sort of embodiments of fear, and this is going to be the theme when Arthur is down in Gogarth. You could say Arthur is almost like a Dungeons and Dragons character, and Merlin is like the dungeon master. So there are extensive, huge man-made caverns in Gogarth. Apparently some of the biggest man-made spaces of that era were in Gogarth because they dug out such huge spaces. So having dropped the Dungeons and Dragons reference, this is kind of the thinking behind this section of the story and why we want to include Gogarth, not only for its fantastic history, but because, of course, mainly because of the story opportunity it offers us as being a part of the way that Merlin chose to educate Arthur.
You're saying when they got here you could touch the ceiling. I don't know how much there's stuff there to spot out of here.
Yeah, that's crazy actually.
I reckon I think there must be verticals in here, and that must be how they've done it. Because you can't imagine people sort of taking out one bucket at a time. Would be here for
Forever, wouldn't it?
I wonder if that's a shaft right there. Look at that. You wonder how people like this were motivated, because do you think they were getting paid or like, why would you bother? You know, like, stitching away. What do you say to a 6-year-old?
So if they started mining over 4,000 years ago, that would be over 2,000 years BC.
Yeah.
So that's before Plutus and before Alpine. That's what you have.
When you look at the surface level seams, it looks like there are claws or like claw marks in the stone, like a dragon has ripped through, because these seams are like I say, about 3 or 4 feet apart, maybe 8 or 10 feet deep, and they're just these huge gouges in the stone. It's really quite a thing.
Already in the break.
Okay.
And I was saying to John on the way up, I said, we've got Emrys Gwledig, which is Emrys, the emperor or leader.
Yeah, the immortal
Becoming
leader.
emperor,
Yeah.
Like Magnus Maximus, it was
Yeah.
Maxim Gwledig as well.
Yeah.
And you also had this other guy called Amlog Gwledig. Is he Ambrosius Amlog? Oh. And it's around about the same time period, maybe a decade or two before. But it's definitely fought against time.
Right.
Loads of them, innit?
Wait at that. Feel that.
2,500.
A lot of the work was done by handheld stones. I think maybe dolomite. I don't know anything about. It'd have to be a very hard stone. So they used hard stones, and handheld ones were in the vast majority. But they did, which made a lot of sense to me, get bigger stones and put them in like a cradle and smash that stone against the wall. So they weren't just using muscle power, they were using some mechanical power, which would seem, as well as using fires, would seem to be a sensible way of trying to extract this malachite using, you know, antlers. You do anything you could to make the job more efficient, and apparently they did swing stones, these large rounded stones, hard stones, swing them at the surface to help break the surface up.
Now leaving the Great Orme Copper Mines Visitor Centre, we decided to head round the northern end of the Great Orme to check out some of the caves and trial levels that are dug into the cliffs on the northern side. So there's like a car park up in this northwest corner where you can just walk down the slope towards this northern edge, where there's a great view out towards Snowdon and the Isle of Anglesey. This is the West Lookout Trail and Shaft. It's just down a little bit down below the road, the circuits around this northwest corner. And as you approach this one, you have to be a bit careful, mind, because it does drop down quite a few foot, like I mean. So just take care as you visit this site. And then more of a scramble down the bank then, and then you come down below this quite steep cliff ridge that runs round. And there's a couple of little caves and mines in this corner as well. And here you can see the Leaf Grotto trial level, and this one's dug straight in underneath that big cliff, and it goes in about 30-40 foot. And that's looking back out the entrance then. So that's just one of the ones up around this end of the island. And these are some of the resident goats then of the Great Orme, which just wander the way around the island. And then travelling back down the road then, along the edge of the Great Orme, this views out towards the Ganwy and Conwy. And we thought we'd head round to the hill fort that guards the front of the Great Orme called Pendinas.
So Pendinas is in a perfect location to secure the area. It's clear whoever lived on top of that hill, whoever was top of that hill, was top dog in that area. The most valuable natural resource for 200 years. You could argue one of the most most valuable natural resources in the world for 200 years during that, was that Middle Bronze Age, whatever, or later Bronze Age, depending on how you count it. Not as important as the Nile, obviously, or the sea, or anything like that, but bearing in mind you're in the Bronze Age, and you've got the biggest copper mine in the world in North Wales, and you've got tin mines in Devon and Cornwall. It doesn't take a genius to realise that the Bronze Age happened in the British Isles in a major way. Them clearly from items such as the Mole Cape and other incredible finds from the era, there was a great deal of skill, but you do wonder about the distribution of the goods, whether some people got fantastically wealthy by being clients of large estates, given that most of the work was done by children in the mines. Why would you bring children from hundreds of miles away when local children, or maybe children from neighbouring areas, would save you that trouble? It seems that over 300 years it's likely thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of people died as a direct result of the mining operation there, but it produced enough copper to make 10 million axe heads, and that kind of economics is hard to argue with.
$10 million accents. Wow. Well, that was totally stunning. Thank you very much, gentlemen. I know we've all enjoyed that one immensely. And we're all looking forward to the next 2 videos to complete the series, if that is the completion of the series. There was great anticipation for these videos as in response to the trailer for the show. And the quality of your work actually exceeds all our hopes and expectations. Wonderful. Great music too. So 3 and 4 will be out as and when. Parts 1 and 2 will be put on the YouTube channel exactly as I received them, with a beginning graphic. And I'll do that shortly. And they may be in their own playlist, so watch out for that. As mentioned by the lads, a book is planned, and the travelogue videos are in support of this. So don't forget that Rob Shaw's book, The Architecture of Power, is out now and is available from www.cymroglyphics.com. Together with the original Wilson and Blackett, The Walking, and other Wilson and Blackett books. Now, Carl Sagan said in the opening scene of his TV series Cosmos something like, "It's impossible to read all the books in the world. The trick is to read the right ones." And I think the books being sold by Cymroglyphics all match the criteria of being the right ones. And as I say every week, everyone is welcome to contribute a video, and we're always looking for new work urgently. Angela or myself will act as liaison to publish them to the Britain's Hidden History YouTube site. If you publish straight to the Facebook group page, let us know that you'd like us to also put the video on the YouTube group channel. Just message us by finding us on the Facebook group page under members. So if you've got a video content with PowerPoint in your video, you've pretty much guaranteed to get it on the show. I'm reaching out to experts for interviews, and so if you've got something to say, to present to the group, and I haven't made contact with you yet, why not get in touch to speak with me? But having said that, I'm not sure if the music videos that I've been given fit in with the ethos of the Facebook group page, which is pretty much only history and jokes. They like the jokes. So maybe the video could be sent direct to me, notify me on Messenger, and then we can use WeTransfer. I'll give you my email address, and then I'll have the video ready to broadcast. I'd like to say we'll take a look at today's chat, but my chat hasn't worked for some reason. Make the comments on the videos when they post it. From what you've been saying tonight, if you've made a point in the chat that needs further discussion and it hasn't been totally completed in the chat. So no, it's time for a couple of Arnie videos. We'll have the week before. Yeah, making real progress, isn't he? Thank you, Arnie, and thanks for the help earlier on getting the streaming set up. A little bit late, unfortunately. So we'll conclude the live chat then for this evening and the show, and we'll close it with a song sung by my friend Stephen J. Preston. We've had him on before. He's given me permission to use his music, which he composes and sings and plays all entirely himself with his other friends, musicians and singers on certain music. This track is called Simply Amazing, and quite frankly, when I first read The Holy Kingdom, which is Alan Wilson, Barham Blackett and Adrian Gilbert, a gateway book into the Wilson and Blackett books, I was blown away. It was truly amazing to read such hidden history brought out into the open. I hope you'll all agree that this song encapsulates a lot of what we think about Alan Wilson and Tony Blackett's work.
If I were running twice the world away from you, I know that you could reach me with your heart. And if the earth were flat, though I were miles away, you'd see me like a candle in the dark. A billion years, a billion tears, a billion winding highways brought you here to me, and you are amazing, truly amazing. You are amazing, truly amazing. If I were only dust and carried on the wind, I know that you could search me out somehow. You carry all the universe inside your head, and I just wanna hold you here right now. A billion years, a billion tears, a billion winding highways brought you here to me, and you are amazing, truly amazing. Yes, you are amazing, truly amazing. You are amazing, truly amazing. Yes, you are amazing, truly amazing. Eyes and heart and lips and hands, all my love to show. Words and touch and thought and dreams, tell me all I need to know, and you are amazing, truly amazing. Yes, you are amazing, truly amazing. You are amazing, truly amazing. Yes, you are amazing, truly amazing, truly amazing.
Yeah, amazing performer and songwriter, isn't he? So that's it for today. Thank you all for joining us, the ones who could get through due to my error. And I hope you enjoyed our time together. I enjoyed getting it right in the end. So thank you to Angie and the boys and to all the volunteers working behind the scenes on both the group media platforms. So it's auf Wiedersehen, au revoir, ciao, nostar, and see you next time. And remember, seek and you will find.
Thank you for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed that and found it informative. Britain's Hidden History Group has so much more going on our YouTube channel. The one you're watching now, there's a live stream, 8 o'clock UK time every Sunday. We speak to people like Wilson and Blackett, reprint their old books and help produce new ones. We go researching to the tops of mountains all the way down to the bottoms of caves. Busily recording the books, you can listen to them as well, and looking at mysteries and working out what we're not being taught in schools and preserving it, because the physical and written evidence is rapidly disappearing. You can also find out how to read ancient writing and hieroglyphs using the Welsh language. It's amazing. There's a Facebook group where this is being discussed. Along with a website, you can buy the books and help us. Also, as you can see, there's now a Patreon page where just a few pounds a month will make all the difference in trying to keep the project going and preserve this history for future generations, and also to find out for ourselves what is going on, what is Britain's hidden history. So until the next time,